today we are going to be covering the greatest medical institution on this side of the world. I guess the east side of the west side of the world. The greatest medical institution on the west side of the world. We are going to be covering University of Miami Miller School of Medicine. Now, obviously, for those who haven't heard, University of Miami is currently in a transition where they are transitioning from one curriculum, the curriculum I'm in, which is so lovingly known as the legacy curriculum, to the next gen curriculum, which is the curriculum that my roommate Josh is currently in. Obviously, there are a lot of changes, but with that being something that is currently happening, I thought it was only fair to do this video with the both of us where I can explain what used to be and then he can also talk about what is coming, and I guess the new changes that are happening, since you guys would most likely be part of his curriculum and not mine. So, without further ado, it's your favorite medical student, Henson, of course, and I am a second year medical student at the University of Miami Miller School of Medicine, and I graduated from the University of Miami undergrad.
Hey everyone, I'm Josh. I'm a first year medical student here at the University of Miami Middle School of Medicine, and I graduated from the University of Delaware.
Now, first question, why did you pick your school to attend? What factors ultimately made you decide on this particular school?
So, I was introduced to the University of Miami in the summer of 2017. I shadowed a doctor who attended UM actually, and he recommended that I apply to the motivation program, and it's called the Minority Students Interested in Medical Careers Motivation Program. And that's a 7-week program where you're exposed to medical school classes, you're able to shadow, you get advice on your application, where you're at, and just your overall portfolio. And that was amazing, so I did that in the summer of 2018. And then I returned here for my master's in biomedical science in 2019, and then applied to UM. So just my exposure from the summer program as well as my master's program here, I just fell in love with the campus, fell in love with the school, obviously with the Office of Diversity, who were the ones responsible for putting together that program. And I knew that this is where I wanted to be.
All right, perfect. UM has always been my number one choice. Since I came in freshman year, I met the staff at the Office of Diversity, and how willing they were to talk to undergrad students kind of attracted my attention. Fast forward, and the summer after my sophomore year, similar to Josh, I did the motivations program, and there I was introduced to all the different faculty and staff here at UM, some of the different doctors, and every Friday we got to shadow. And so shadowing different places in UM, shadowing the hospital itself, that meant a lot to me, and it honestly opened a lot of gates. Fast forward the summer after that, and I was in the MCAT program that was also offered here. So for me, the time that the University of Miami took to invest in myself, to invest in my career and invest in getting me to where I am, meant a lot. And the fact that I knew that I would be supported here, I knew the kind of support system it had, the culture meant a ton. And our University of Miami a lot. Tell us about your school academic structure. An overview of the curriculum, classes taken, what order, grades versus pass fail, breakdown, and so on, so on. So this one we're gonna do kind of like new versus old. So for those who have watched all the previous videos, you know that like my school, or the way my curriculum went, was that it was based on like the organ module system. So our first semester we had all of our basic sciences, biochem, genetics, immuno, micro, physiology, pharmacology, anatomy, Jesus, histology, And then starting spring semester of my first year, that's when we started organ modules. So we did cardio, then neuro. We had 6-week summer, and then we came back to derm opto, respiratory, renal, MSK, rheumatology, micro, infectious diseases, hematology and oncology, and then GI. So currently in GI, my last organ module on time during second year. And then from there, you go into rotations, where you so kind of like the same 2-2 that most people are familiar with, 2 years of preclinical work. And then now I'm headed towards my my dedicated step period, where I'm going to study to take my step ones, which are graded, by the way. And then I come back, and then I start rotations, and I'm on rotations for 2 years. And then I apply to residency at the end of my third year, begin my fourth year. Or I'm sorry, I apply to residency in my fourth year, take step 2 sometime within that, and then I go on to residency.
So the next Gen MD curriculum is very different. One of the main differences is that we don't do 8 weeks of anatomy at the start.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we don't have that big block of anatomy at the start of first year. So the 4 years are broken down into 3 phases. So phase 1 is like the preclinical foundational phase, and then phase 1 is further broken down into phase 1A, 1B, and 1C. And 1A and 1B were basically like professionalism, everything about medicine outside of just the science of it, as well as just like foundational medicine in terms of just general science. And then phase 1C is when we got into, so phase 1A and 1B would be just physiology essentially, and then phase 1C is where we got into like pathology. And interestingly, in phase 1C, everything is broken up by symptoms. So for example, the unit that we're currently on is atypical chest pain. So we're learning what diseases would present with atypical chest pain, essentially. So that's pretty interesting. Then phase 2 would be clerkship phase, and that begins in October, actually. So that goes on until our fourth year, and the fourth year would be phase 3, where we do research or do our scholarly concentration. And scholarly concentration is essentially like a minor in undergrad. And with that, you can choose, we had a very long list. So I chose mind-body medicine, but the list included topics like regenerative medicine, health law, public health. There was also an option to have an accelerated pathway where you could graduate in 3 years instead of 4, and begin your residency at the end of your third year. So that's also really cool.
Okay. So like I said, mine was a 2-2. So how long would yours be as far as preclinical? Like, how long are you in the preclinical science learning stage?
So just the first year.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you go, how long is your didactic phase? Or I'm sorry, not didactic. How long is your clerkship phase?
So that would be the next 2 years, essentially.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then your fourth year, you get to do all your extra,
like research or electives and stuff like that.
Okay.
But the fourth years is generally very flexible for us as well.
Okay. And then for my year, we take step 1 after our second year. So GI is over for me soon, and then as soon as it's done, we have a 6 to 7 week step 1 period, and then when that is over, I come back to start electives, and then after an elective period, I go into my rotations. And then
so we're taking step 1 at the end of second year as well, but like we said, the major difference is that we start clerkships in our second year. So we will be essentially taking step 1 and step 2 together after we have completed a year of clerkships.
Next question. What are the pros of your school?
So one big thing for me was the weather. Obviously we're in Miami. So I went to undergrad in Delaware, moving from Antigua in the Caribbean. So, that was a big change for me in terms of how cold it was. So it's pretty cool to be able to be here in a similar climate that I grew up in. Another major pro is how responsive the faculty is to feedback. I feel like a lot of faculty say that and don't actually mean it, but that's definitely the case. There are numerous occasions that they've facilitated whether it's like a town hall or just like a general meeting to meet with students, to hear our concerns, and to make changes to things that we would have brought up. And I must commend the school for that. So that's definitely a major pro for me. Another one is that I think generally the culture, I'm sure Henson is the same in his class as well, that everyone really works together. It's not like a competitive thing where people are trying to do better than others. I mean, obviously, everyone wants to do really well because it's med school, but everyone is also open to helping each other out, whether it's like with study guides or just like tips and how to deal with Anki and stuff like that. Everyone's really collaborative.
Next question, any unique traits or aspects or things your school is known for? So, first and foremost, Jackson. Jackson Memorial is probably like a blessing that most people undervalue or underestimate, but Jackson means a lot to the students into this school. Having Jackson there, having UMH there, so it's not just Jackson. UM is surrounded by like a bunch of different hospitals. There is Jackson Hospital, which is really big. There's University of Miami Hospital, which is more of a private hospital. There's the VA. And all these are literally on the same campus, so all within walking distance. There's Holtz Children, which is right next to Jackson. There's Sylvester, which is known for cancer, obviously. Baskin Palmer, which is the &1 place for ophthalmology in the nation. I don't want to say the world, but I know for sure in the nation. And then just numerous other clinics and like other things you can do, along with a whole regional campus with other options for people who do choose to go the MD and PH route. So the breadth of hospitals and experiences that you can get here, I think, is second to none, basically. Other unique traits or aspects that our school is known for, Docs. I think Docs is huge as far as our school is. Docs is basically responsible for the community health fairs and the community clinics that the University of Miami does put on. So with the health fairs, it is just a large community-based health fair where we as medical students volunteer along with attendings and residents to go out to the community and offer free primary care to the people in that community. So it's a whole day-long event. They come in, they sign in, they go to a bunch of different stations that cover the majority of what you would want to check when it comes to like primary care. Basically like one big physical wellness, and then on top of that, at the end, it comes with like recommendations along with referrals to different things based on the certain problems or based on like what may have been discovered during your visit. And then with the clinics are basically along the same lines where it offers free primary care and sometimes specialized care to the people of the community where it is located different nights. For example, I was involved in the CHS clinic, which he also volunteered at. And for that one, it's every Monday night, and it offered basically free primary care to the residents of Little Haiti. Next question. Life outside of school. So explain how life outside of school is, housing situations, affordability of housing, things to do in the city, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
So for housing, it's Miami, you're in the city, so it's going to be expensive. So currently we're living in downtown Miami, and that's still pretty expensive, but it's definitely cheaper than Brickell. But I think on average, students would be paying, if you're living in a 2-bedroom, on average you'd be paying from like $1,500 up to $2,000, maybe even more, depending on, if you want to live in some kind of really bougie apartment. Things to do in the city, so it's Miami. Like there's so many options, especially when it comes to food. Anything you can think of, it's 10-15 minutes away. Especially since Wynwood is so close as well, so the options are limitless. And in terms of things to do like in South Beach and nightlife and stuff like that, obviously in these times not much things are currently open. That's not true. That's not true.
Pretty much
but it's ill-advised.
Limited hours.
Yeah, it's ill-advised to be doing a lot of things. But when the time comes, opportunities will be there since there's so many options here in the city.
Yeah, that's true. I guess as far as like life outside of school, like you said, there's a ton of activities. you're in Miami, the beach is a popular destination, but besides that, you can pretty much find whatever you're looking for. Um, Transportation within Miami itself. So where we live, we do have access to campus, whether it is through public transportation or whether it is by car.
Or bike.
Or bike. He does bike to school. I tried it a couple times. It was not for me. I do not like the idea of sweating before getting to class. But he has found ingenious ways to go about it. However, most people who live within like the city or within school or who live in an apartment not at home are able to take the metro to campus. So by taking the metro, you can pay the monthly metro pass or get the monthly metro pass. Although currently, because of COVID, it is free, so I guess you don't have to do that. And then that takes you directly to campus. There's also the Metro Mover, which runs within like the city, like the proper city of Miami itself. So the Metro Mover can take us Brickell, it can take us downtown, it can take us different parts of inner city Miami. So for us, if we take the Metro Mover to the metro station, we can also get to school through the metro. A lot of people drive, especially if they don't live within the city itself, where they live in Miami Beach, or they live in like Coral Gables or any place up north. Some people do drive to campus. Parking on campus, you pay per month, and there are parking garages for you to get on, so that's also pretty accessible in that regards. How about things to do to relax away from school, whether activities in the city or programs put on by the school?
So for me personally, I'm a big fan of soccer. So we are able to play weekly, sometimes even twice a week, either at the undergrad campus or at a spot in Brickell, where it's like at a rooftop, which is really cool. So it's a few med students, we get together and play weekly, and that's like a big, stress reliever and a big time for us to, meet up, catch up, see what's happened over the past week, and just have some fun, But outside of that, there are a lot of other options as well. I have friends who go to Topgolf pretty often. A friend of mine, what is that jetpack thing called? Like when you're like flying over the water?
Oh, actually, I've seen nothing but videos. I don't know what it's called, but I know exactly what
so
you're
someone
talking
did
about.
that like last week. So jet skiing too, like there's so many options of just extracurricular things that you can do on your own or in groups and stuff. There's also a rock climbing spot on the undergrad campus that we have access to, so that's really cool too. But yeah.
Interesting. How does the school support its students?
So one big thing about our curriculum is that a lot of it is broken down into small group interactions. So like I said, so the day-to-day would be, we have seminars, and then following the seminars we would have small group case-based discussions with about 4 or 5 students in that group. And additional to that, once a week we'd come in a group of about 8 students with a faculty or physician here at the school, and we would either have like more case-based discussions, or we practice physicianship skills, or discuss literature, discuss different social issues and stuff like that. So the school, well, our new curriculum and the school really emphasizes working together in groups and building relationship among the students, even in the midst of the pandemic. So with that, it's been really helpful. Even since we haven't really been able to meet as a bigger class, we still have these small groups where we can meet each other and support each other. And I start with that to say, so the once a week thing where we come in with a group of 8, we have a facilitator, and that's called our LCE. And LCE stands for Learning Community something.
That's your curriculum.
Yeah. But he's essentially, it's a guy for me. But he's essentially our facilitator, and he is someone that we can reach out to whenever we have issues, and we have bi-weekly check-ins. And with that, it's just like a 15-minute conversation. It can be longer if we want, where we update him on our goals for the semester, how things are going, and stuff like that. Apart from that, there's also the academic enrichment center as well, and they're responsible for any issues that we have with scheduling, maybe any tutoring opportunities that we may need, or just general counseling or feedback and stuff like that. And there's also just general counseling as well that we also have access to at the school. So I said that to say that we have a lot of options when it comes to reaching out and getting assistance from the school. The school really emphasizes the importance of not just doing well in the books and science, but also taking care of ourselves outside of that. Obviously it's a lot of work. It's med school. It's going to be stressful, but I do know for sure that the school does support the students with that. Just tracking back a bit, I think something important to speak about our curriculum is that when applying for residency in the future, something that's important for all medical students is that we want to have research done at the end of the 4 years, and want to hopefully be published as well. And with our curriculum, like I said, we have that scholarly concentration as well, and that's tailored towards having every student be involved in research at the end of the 4 years. So it's not a case where, obviously you can still go out of your way to do your own projects with mentors outside of your scholarly concentration, but having that pathway, you already have that opportunity to have at least one project on your belt at the end of the 4 years within that pathway. So like I said, my pathway is mind-body medicine. So at the end of my 4 years, I will have done a project in mind-body medicine, even without going out of my way to try to find a mentor on my own.
Yeah, it definitely means a lot. Okay, so what do you wish you knew but you only recognize in hindsight about your school or about your situation? If you could do it all over again, would you make the same decision?
I didn't think about this question.
Oh, here, I can answer while you think. So, probably what it truly means when they say that med school becomes your life. Because in the beginning, especially my first year, I tried to balance out a lot. I tried to still balance out the fact that, okay, cool, I'm in med school. Cool, I'm gonna still have a social life in some ways. Cool, I'm still gonna sleep. Cool, I'm still gonna have all of my hobbies. Cool, I'm still gonna, watch anime. And it does not work out like that. So, you definitely have to learn that med school should be treated as close to a job as possible, where you do dedicate the 6 to 8 hours, maybe less if you're if you got it like that, maybe more if you still got it like that, towards what you're trying to be. Yeah.
So similar to what Henson just mentioned about time management, I feel like you can talk to people all the time in medical school, and they can tell you that, oh, they're so busy, they're always studying, but you don't understand it until you're actually in it. So I was actually roommates with Henson while I was doing my master's program, 2019 to 2020. And I was obviously able to speak to him about his process and how med school is going and stuff. But starting med school and actually having to study every single day just to keep up. If you miss one day of studying, you feel like you're 5 days behind.
You are 5 days behind.
Hey, it's definitely something to adjust to. But I feel like once you're able to find your own groove, so everybody's different. But once you're able to find the study schedule that works for you, find the study strategy that works for you, it comes together. Obviously you're not going to be able to watch anime as often as you want as you want to watch it, or you don't have that much free time, so you also have to be very deliberate with how you spend your free time as well. But it all comes together eventually. It's going to be a struggle at first, but it does come together.
Yeah, that's facts. So impromptu question. General overviews. I love Miller, truly and truly love Miller as a school. I would not change my decision because this school has done a lot and is doing a lot as far as like my development, both in undergrad and now in med school, and as far as like becoming a career-driven professional person. I will always recommend Miller to anyone and everyone. Like, I would do these videos. I truly do think this school is a great school, and the things that it offers, the experiences it offers, and the resources it does have, do stretch above and beyond. Now, obviously, probably everyone's gonna think that about their schools, but I know for a fact I would not change the decision.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot of pros. Like I said, with the weekly assessments, you pretty much have to keep up with the material. With the case-based discussion that we have 4 times a week, you're collaborating with the team pretty often, so you're able to build a relationship with them, and also you're able to work through like different problems when it comes to seeing different types of cases. So for example, the case would be presented as, a 40-year-old man comes in with X, Y, and Z, and then we as a group work through that case together and apply what we just learned in lecture, whether it was the day before or 2 days before, with that. And I think that's really helpful in terms of making things not just understanding things on paper, but we're already practicing about how we're going to be working in the future when it comes to working in the wards and during our clerkships and stuff like that. So that's definitely really helpful. And yeah, just like what Henson said about recommending the schools to anyone, I would also do the same. I love Miller, the culture of it, especially just because of how genuine the faculty seems. They're always open to feedback. They make it clear that their priority is to produce great physicians. But yeah, great school, man.
Okay, so last question. Any advice and shameless plugs?
Okay, just general advice, I guess, would be to not forget the goal. I feel like at every point, we actually had this conversation like last week or 2 weeks ago. We were saying that when we were taking the MCAT, we were like, oh, this is the most important exam that I'm ever going to take. And then he's taking step in 2 months, and then he's like, no, this is the most important exam ever. So it's like at every stage, there's like a new big hurdle to get over. But my general advice would be to not forget the goal and just keep focused on that. And with that, you'll be able to get over every hurdle until you get there, essentially. And shameless plugs, follow me on IG. It's gonna be here.
Yes, it will be there. My advice, remember your why. We are in a very accomplishment driven, numbers based society where all of a sudden scores mean something, grades mean something. Just remember why you're here and why you're learning what you're learning, because there was a point where I started forgetting that I'm here because I want to help people. And for me, it all became gotta get this grade, gotta get this step score. And it takes the fun out of why you're here. And that's where I guess the stress and the doubt and stuff like that can come from. So remember why you're here, and remember that numbers don't mean that you'll be a good doctor. Numbers don't mean that you're gonna be someone who someone will look at and be proud that that's their physician. So remember the little things, and then on top of that, keep an open mind. Be willing to accept criticism and change, and also be willing to change. Your study methods in college may not work. You may come to a point where you are not as smart as you thought you were, which happens. And you may come to a point where most people come into med school, they were on the upper side of the average, coming from undergrad, and then you get here and it's all these other people are doing so much better. It's fine. Everyone is gonna have a strong point and everyone's gonna have a weak point. You may thrive at one place and they may not. Just work through it, and just remember that it's okay. At the end of the day, it'll all be okay if you get through it, of course. Shameless plugs. like this video, subscribe, comment, and watch all the other future videos. But definitely thank you to Josh
Yes, sir.
for doing this video and speaking on your experience. Thank you to all of you guys watching. There are gonna be a lot more videos to come. So thank you guys for listening. Oh wow, this is a pretty long video. Oh well, we'll see how long. But either way, remember to like, subscribe, comment, and that is all. Any other word?